on September 14th, 2020, and we'll call to order the City Council workshop, and we'll begin with roll call.
Here.
Pritchett?
Here. Well, here. Here.
Pritchett gave the thumbs up, meaning he is here. Bevins?
Here.
Erickson?
Here.
T. Erickson?
Here.
Lambert? Here. Johnson?
Here.
No.
Here. Then brings up the next item, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. The flag is by John.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to item number 4 out of 6. We're making good time.
That the agreement?
The 2021 Parks Budget presentation by the Park Board, Carol, the Park Board President, is going to give that. Dave, if you can't hear Carol, we'll move her closer to the camera, so just let us know. Perfect. I can ask that.
Great. I'm really nervous, but I'm really happy to be here presenting. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, and members of the council, my name is Kara Schaefer, and I'm the president of the Park Board. So I am here with Council Taylor and Vice President. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys our proposed. So as you guys are aware, we are working on possible alternatives to our programs and our staff structure. So we are going to be presenting this as if nothing has changed for us. Okay. As COVID has caused this year to bring us new challenges, we as the Park Board worked with the team use this time to our advantage. This spring, each Park Board member evaluated each Brainerd Park with an evaluation that Vice President Yeager created. With this, we were able to see what our dream parks could look like. We dug in and created a list of needs and wants for our parks that the staff could focus on and work on with the programming going on this summer. There are many things still on that list that we will continue to work on in the coming years. So onto our packet here, and talk about some stuff in there. The supplies budget increased by approximately $30,000 because it increased the repairs and maintenance budget for the professional services, as well as the shingling on various fees that are estimated to be done for less than $5,000, rather than putting those in the capital budget. Okay. You will also notice an estimated decrease in expenditures for the programming in 2021. This is because we had purchased the shirts and other various items for programming this year, and then we did not have them before. So we will next year. So details of the programs offered by the Parks Department is also included in your packet. The information does not include overhead costs such as the full-time staff, utilities, etc. The personnel services listed in the program details are the temporary rec aides that we hired. Before we go any further, do you guys have any questions for programming or anything I've said so far?
Any questions of the Park Board? Oh.
Questions? Okay. No? Okay. So the initial budget for 2021 shows a need of $935,931 for operations. That's about a 4.8% increase over the $42,855 from the 2020 budget. So again, most of this increase is a result of the increase in the repairs and the maintenance budget. You guys have any questions, please jump in. Okay. Also attached to the information in the packet was a portion of the Parks capital plan. So for 2020, the capital request was $48,600. For 2021, it is $469,000. In 2020, the council bonded for the Memorial Parks project, resulting in less need for the parks by the Parks Board. You're also going to notice a line item for the $100,000 match for the splash pad. You guys are familiar with the meeting that Emily and, well, you're familiar with Emily Meta that presented at the meeting last week. So we listed it within our budget, but hope that you guys will match their request. We fully understand that we will be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of the splash pad after it is built.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the rest of that? Is that in here somewhere? Itemization of the capital?
Yes, that would be,
It's on page 10 and 11, line 10 and 11.
It was also included in the overall budget packet that was sent out, and included all of those items as well, and we'll see those again during the presentation as well.
This is done.
For the, when I'm talking about the whole city. Sorry.
Well, I have a question, Kara, or Kevin, or Paul. First of all, thank you for presenting the budget. But, can I ask capital questions, or do you want to go through the capital before I ask questions? Oh,
okay, so one more paragraph. Okay, so you'll also notice $75,000 per year was requested starting in 2022, so I know this is next year, but I just wanted to give you over forward thinking. So it's a new thing called park upgrade and beautification. This is a new line item because we're really exciting. Like I said, we're forward thinking and wanting to set aside money each year for the park upgrades. So for example, we save money for a couple of years and have the money to add a walking trail to Memorial Park or a new playground at Bain Park or whatever is needed. So each year though, prior to presenting the budget request to the City Council, the Park Board will identify the specific projects that we'll be using that money for. So then as a result, the initial 2021 Park Board request, including capital, $1,304,931. And now I'll take it.
okay, my first
Or anyone else.
question. I'm serious, I really appreciate you presenting the budget. That meeting to talk about the capital. I served a couple of years on the park board, and the board wasn't doing that then. So I'm glad to see you are now and you're presenting it. I think that's progress. Memorial Park. We funded and budgeted a firm 1.0. Right. But you have now the phase 1, phase 2, and you're requesting an additional over the next few years, $400,000. Turning it into a 1.7 million. How did that get so expensive?
Kevin can speak to this really well. So
Yeah.
Kevin, do you mind speaking to that?
Not at all, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. So there's a couple things at play that create the dynamics of why we're seeing this. First of all, we were given the task of replacing certain structure. We were asked to replace 2 rinks and the warming house. So when we started on the process of the development of Memorial Park, we felt that it would be the right move to look at not only what we were asking to replace, but also a general plan for the entire park. So aspirations beyond what was just being asked for. So we released an RFP to seek help from engineering firms. We had several of those return, and we selected WSB as our partner on the design portion of that. As we've been working with WSB, we've been getting percentage updates on what our projected costs are. So this park project is not insulated from the remainder of the economies out there, and we're seeing much higher numbers than we originally anticipated coming in. So this is certainly a factor in why the numbers are going higher. What we want to buy is just getting more and more expensive every single day. So the park board also made the decision a while back to put off the bidding of this project from summer this year to the winter of this year in the hopes of stretching that dollar a little bit further, which I think was absolutely the right decision based on the advice of not only staff, but also our partners at WSP. So that's part of it. But I also want to say that the park board has aspirations for Memorial Park beyond just what was asked for. And this money not only covers the 2 rinks as well as the warming house that we were hoping to replace what we're looking at build, but it also has a greater vision for the entire park. And that's mostly what the secondary portion of the money is made up. A walking trail,
a splash pad, a disc golf course. We have some upgrades also to the park as well. Beyond that, just from lighting, municipalities, underground utilities, and so forth. So we're looking at it from a somewhat of a surgical approach on an overall plan that money represents.
Yeah, thank you. Another kind of capital question. I don't see in here the $2.8 million of LTCR we might be getting next year. Are you guys just not budgeting for that until it's verified that we are getting something? And then I know we didn't really have the park board involved. We should have. We're currently getting a master plan done for the month. And that we'll be able to spend as many millions as we want over a very big part. How do you see that being funded? If we're going to 1.7 on Memorial, and that's going to take 10 years to pay off. How long until we can start investing in one? Or if that's even the next part.
I can jump in on a little bit of that. So part of what the park board is working to understand right now is, and part of the dynamic of this, what I'm going to call the new park board that's in place right now, is we're working hard to understand what we own, what it costs to own what we own, and then also create a vision for the future. All three things that, quite frankly, this budget addresses, but does not surgically address. And so what I will tell you is that the $75,000 a year that we're asking for to be earmarked towards upgrades and beautification helps us to better insulate ourselves from the ebbs and flows of the marketplace, as well as what projects may come or may not come. So if we know that Lum Park is being talked about as a potential project, we can say, okay, guys, looks like Lum Park is probably gaining momentum and probably is going to happen. Let's start thinking about tagging some of that money and saving that for Lum Park. Another example could be Memorial Park. Our aspirations for Memorial Park are exceeding what we've been given by the city, so let's think about saving some of that money. So we're really at the beginning of, in my opinion, really understanding our park system to the level of which we can come to you with an intelligent, forward-thinking design that approaches what we own and just truly what it costs to maintain. I believe, quite honestly, that a lot of that is missing from the budget passed this year. But you have a park board that has their chin straps on, and their sleeves rolled up, and they are digging in to begin to understand these things. And I believe that a year from now, we will come back to you with a budget that is much better understood and much more forward-thinking, in the hopes of making not only the park board look good, but you guys look good as well. I think that's going to happen.
Okay, one final question from me. I see you have $10,000 something for reshingling the bathhouse at Lum Park. Wouldn't it be better spent to just spend $10,000 to tear that building down?
Possibly. And before we do it, we'll make sure we have an educated.
The good portion of that building, probably 80% of it, is a wreck. There's no question. But the restrooms underneath the stadium are relatively new, probably within the last 10 years. So that portion of it would be instrumental. There's a good chunk in the middle between the concession
I'm
stand.
talking about the bathrooms at Lum Park.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking.
You have reshingling that in your budget, and it doesn't serve a public purpose. There's a little bit of storage, but otherwise, how about we tear it down instead of re-roofing?
Have an answer. Thank you, Mr. President. What I would like to say is that this budget has a reactive temperature to it, quite frankly. I believe this is an example. At this point, we're saying, let's put some money into just shingling this thing and keeping this building alive, because we really don't know what our master plan will reveal for us and what our future will reveal to us. That might indicate that maybe we should keep this building, maybe we should have it. So I believe this is a perfect example of us just trying to maintain the status quo here for a little bit until we can get our bearings with a true vision for not only this park, but all of our parks, and understand what it is that we actually want to do. Because I don't think that we do just yet. We're working on it. I believe that's why you're seeing that.
Okay, I'll stop. Anybody else have any questions? Mayor?
They do have 162 earmarked for the park in 2027. So they notice that there is that potential need, set some aside.
Kelly?
May I ask our a question? I don't know if you were, either of you were on the board, when we sat in this very room, we went round and round on this. Particularly with, why would we, I'll be correct, why would we ever invest in this? When the Gregory fountain is successful act. And I've heard that question in the last 2 weeks as the splash pad has come forward, asking the council for it. And I can't answer that. But I don't see anything budgeted for the fountain. And I know we put some investment. But being that this was a big board through discussion because that was for the splash pad. Kind of my recollection is the promise from the council was no public money into the splash pad until the fountain is done. Well, the fountain is done, but arguably somewhat lacking. And certainly nowhere near what it was before it had its own. I suspect, so my question is, how come nothing for the fountain? Are you guys happy with the fountain? I mean, this thing goes out a decade with nothing for the fountain. Is that it? That's what we get? And is that what we're going to tell people that the fountain is happy with? And now we're going to take money for the splash pad? Because I suspect there would be some resistance, at least in the Gregory Park. And a lot of people look at that fountain right at, as you come up to the water tower, it's what you see 2 blocks to the north. The same argument will likely be had, just like it was 5 years ago, on 6th, the 2 blocks of 6th Street, for the meeting. Very contentious. 10 years ago, it was never, nothing was ever. Just funding. That's my question. Is there, I see nothing but the Gregory Park. How can I justify that to my constituents? We're told no splash pad, no public money, tell that one.
Before you answer, we heard from Pritchett, when we turn our heads away from the camera, he has trouble hearing us. But it'll be a challenge for you, Kelly, making eye contact here and talking there, but try to do it.
Yell this direction.
Dave, Pritchett, I just wanted to know why, how come we're spending money on this splash pad when the Gregory fountain is, and these are my words, pathetic.
So yeah, I'm gonna have Kevin take this one again, knowledgeable about this stuff. Oh,
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And, I can't speak to what was promised on the splash pad. The meeting that you're talking about, I was not on the board, but I was in this room during that meeting. I was on the north side resident as well, concerned about splash pad and fountain as well as other things. In my opinion, Kelly, the splash pad is one of about a billion things. The fountain is one of about a billion things that needs to be looked at. Again, we are beginning to identify that the ongoing maintenance of our parks has seemed to have slipped over the years. We know this. Through park evaluations, through this document right here that we got our hands on 6 weeks ago, which is a wonderful document that I wish I had a long time ago, have identified many needs for our parks other than and including the fountain. So what I can say is that it's something that we are absolutely looking at. Parks as a fountain being played. As for the splash pad, and I don't see it as stealing money from the fountain to the splash pad. The splash pad came about as a part the splash pad specifically at Memorial Park, came about as a part of our discussions of dreaming about or conceiving what Memorial Park could be. We knew that at that time, when we started this, that the splash pad folks had raised a substantial amount of money autonomously, apart from this. And it seemed to make sense that if we could inject some energy into the splash pad, we could help them with their fundraising, get that going again, and get a little energy going, and potentially be able to play off the money that they're raising that is doing nothing, just sitting there waiting. Maybe help with some of the design, get that in front of public, get some energy going, and we might be able to get the movement to actually do this. So, while I can't necessarily say what the dynamics are with I can say that it's one of many things.
May I follow up on that? I think, I understand completely what you're saying, and I understand timing, it is Memorial Park's funding, the citizens have raised money, so we're not having to do that. I think that part of the issue is going to be, it's not up there anyway. Oh, it's not there anyway. It's not like, be patient, we're doing Memorial Park this year, we've got 80 grand or whatever these people have raised, so clearly there is some desire. And Gregory Park Fountain is look like it was there. 5 years down the road, whatever.
This could be,
I'm done, thank you.
this could be where we took the 75,000. These are things that come up. We didn't have on the plan, so we could that one. But
Yeah, as soon as we approve your budget, you can amend it, spend it wherever you want.
exactly.
Thank you, Gabe.
Connie?
Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate
Okay.
Connie?
I just think that we need to keep in mind that the capital plan is still a work in progress, and it will be a work in progress. I think even as staff, we've identified things that we have not included in the plan that should be, and that we can do a better job at our capital planning as well. So I think that includes the parts as well, of just really identifying everything that we have. We've been doing this probably for 3 years now, 4 years. And so I think we're slowly adding. I mean, even when our ask has increased or has doubled from what we thought it was going to be in 2021, that just says it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, last year, for 2020, the Parks Board said in 2021, we're only going to need like $80,000. When we get to the 2021 budget, now they need $470,000. It has been blown based on priority.
We're doing a better job.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I guess my understanding right, we're in the process of doing the master plan for the park, or we have that master plan in place already.
For
The park, we have the master plan
Long Memorial?
for the park system.
Oh,
No, I believe we only have Memorial Park, and then it sounds like we're working on Lum. But otherwise, the other parks we do not have as part of the master plan. We went through and did a park evaluation, our board did, like what we wanted to do, as our things at the park, but official master plan that we're paying someone else to do, like, we are not.
So we don't have anything in front of us that the wish list for the parks. Yeah, that would be very nice to know.
We could definitely-
Wish list.
We don't have that here, but we definitely have it, that
That's
we
the
can get to you guys.
you provide
That is not,
that to the council? Send it to Jennifer and she'll send it out to the council.
Yeah, they went through every single part, right through and listed everything. And it goes so far as this concrete is checked. When it goes down to the nitty-gritty. So it's not necessarily meant to be all pie in the sky. It's meant to be, what are the small things we can fix, what are the medium things? And then we also do have the facility study as kind of, well, yeah, they have an entire list for each part individually, what they would like to see, what the potentials are. It isn't necessarily something we want to spend $20,000 on. Yeah, they have all of that.
No, that would be nice to have on hand, because I think the $75,000 is forward thinking we don't have it. But I, increasing what it is, without having a feel for it. That's my concern. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mayor?
My only comment is it sounds like you take your $7,000.
I spent 50 grand in that.
Hey, that's half another piece.
Are you guys experiencing an earthquake?
Okay, again, just continue on progress over the budget forward. Budgeting and everything, we haven't seen brought in. I guess that, no other parks comments, we can go to Connie and see. Connie's presentation, I believe, has this request penciled in, so we can see how it fits in with the rest of the city's budget before deciding what we want to do or not. Go ahead, Connie.
All right, thank you. So municipal budgeting, the city's budget reflects the city's plans, policies, goals regarding services and sound resource judgment. Stability is a major concern for the city. Major differences between a city and a private sector budgeting. Whereas the city, we provide services and programs for the entire community, and we focus on public safety and the well-being as a community as a whole. Whereas private and non-governmental organizations have a discrete set of customers and allocate money to meet the shareholders and owners' expectations for profits. Some other differences are cities have a wide variety of activities, a significant number of state and federal mandates that we're required to do that we don't always receive the funding for. We cannot borrow money from a bank, but we issue debt in forms of bonds. Where your private and non-governmental organizations have a narrowly defined programs and services, are not subject to as many federal legally binding mandates, and they can obtain money from a bank to improve their business and buildings. Cities use their taxing authority to raise funds. We have to have the public input on the budget per state statute. City councils make budgeting decisions by consensus, and we have competing interests when preparing the budget. For private and non-governmental organization, they charge for services or programs to make a profit. There's no public participation in their budget. They have the authority to adopt a budget is generally done by one person, and they have fewer competing interests because they have a more narrow focus. For cities, we are subject to stringent and comprehensive financial controls and public reporting to prevent the mismanagement and misuse of public funds. That's why we use fund accounting, so it's easier to say this is the money that came in, this is the money where we spent it. Where private or non-governmental organizations are not under as much scrutiny as the cities are. Some responsibilities, the difference between staff and council. For staff, we review the city's needs, develop the budget, strategic alignment with the council goals, and provide recommendations to council. Council's responsibility is to understand the impact to the community, alignment with goals, council goals and priorities, and to provide services levels needed in needed areas. So for the city of Brainerd, what do we budget for? A city has to adopt the budget for at least the general fund, but not for every fund. The city has just over 60 different funds. The city has historically adopted an official budget for the following funds: our general fund that we're required, and our special revenue funds, our public safety, parks, and streets. These four funds are what we refer to as the working funds. Their primary activities are supported by the tax levy. And a lot of times you will see public safety, parks, and streets all under the general fund if you look at another city. Ours are separate because it listed out in the charter. We also adopt official budgets for the other special revenue funds that are listed. For example, the transit fund, it's ridership money and grants from the federal and state government that fund their operations. We also do a budget for the debt service fund, not so much as revenue and expenses, but make sure that we have enough funds to pay our debt. And then we have our capital. This is the equipment and facilities. And then the council does adopt a budget for the enterprise funds, which is our sanitary and storm sewer funds, which again is the charges for services that run those operations for those funds. How do we budget? We estimate all of the non-taxable revenues, our fees, fines, LGA, grants that we know of. We estimate all of our expenditures, personnel costs, supplies and services, and our debt and capital. And the difference between the two is the amount needed for levy. The League of Minnesota Cities defines budgeting as basically planning and prioritizing goals for the coming year based on experiences from the past year or years. So when staff is putting together the budget, we look at 2 years of budget versus actual data, as well as the year that we're currently in, our budget, as well as the year-to-date information. So we are looking at more than just 1 year to get our historical trends. Tonight's discussion is going to be focusing on the working funds, the general public safety, parks and streets, the debt, the capital equipment fund, the funds that need levy for operations. The primary levy needs to be adopted by September 30th. And this is what's used for the tax notices that are sent out to our residents in November. The final levy needs to be certified to the county by December 31st. And the final levy can be lower than the certified levy in September, but cannot be higher. So what does our levy look like today? So we're comparing the actual 2019 data, the adopted budget for 2020, and then our current proposed budget. And the difference is between 2020 and 2021. So you can see that we are estimating our expenses to increase by $309,402. And we'll go through each one of what causes the increase in personnel costs, supplies and services, etc. The capital we're proposing to increase by $100,000. The debt service we're expecting to decrease by $352,240. We have our other levies, which we're estimating to increase by $101,813. So our total expenses at this point are estimated to increase by $158,976 from the 2020 budget. To estimate all of our expenses, we also estimate all of our non-property tax revenues, which we are expecting to decrease $5,000. Now, 2021 is not an election year, and what the council has been trying to do is every year to levy or budget for half of the cost of the election. So we saw in 2020, we saw that we were going to decrease our fund balance by $15,000. In 2021, we want to increase our fund balance by $15,000, so that we have each year we're increasing or decreasing by half the election. Also for 2020, the city council adopted $102,000 more than what they needed to balance the budget, because we were trying to stabilize the increase in the levy need that we were going to need for 2021. So when you take that all into account, we could actually reduce the levy by $10,000.
So.
This is preliminary. So yes, as of right now, we could decrease the levy, including with the park board's request. So if we look at each one of the increase, so that's just comparing the levy. Personnel services. There is an additional temporary employee for engineering to assist with performing the street condition analysis, otherwise known as the pavement study. This has an estimated impact to the budget of about $8,100 for 2021. We assume that all staff that were eligible to change a step are going to change steps. And there is an estimated amount for the settlement of the 3 union contracts that expire December 31st. The current budget accounts for our wonderful and super parks director and police chief's retirements. We also have 27 sworn officers included in the budget. That means that we would need to hire 6 officers in order to meet that number. The budget assumed that 2 would be hired before the first of the year. Another 2 would be hired in March, and another 2 would be hired in June. So we kind of phased them in. And the budget currently includes the reorganization of the Community Development Department. And the 2021 estimated impact of this is $2,500. So if we look at what we mean by reorganization of the community development department, it's actually not adding any additional staff. So for 2020, this is what we had budgeted for personnel. It has been updated with the 2021 cost. The proposal is to change staff around. Basically, then there's the difference of the $2,500. We'd be taking the vacant housing inspector position and turning it into an assistant planner position. And we'd be taking the zoning specialist and turning it into an admin 2 position. And we would also be eliminating a temporary position. That is how we came up with the increase of $2,500 for the restructuring of the community development department. Yes,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
Will you all go look at the Dispatch News article from 2017? Where we created a zoning specialist position? And I said, I don't like the idea of this, it's gonna turn into a planner. And I was the only one to vote no. You all voted yes and said, Dave, you're crazy, there's no way this is going to turn into a city plan. I just want you to see that the zoning specialist is turning into the assistant planner, and I ask that you all go look at that. Thank you, guys.
I think too, this is again, new leadership looking at what we need for our city as well. So if we go back to the changes in personnel, of all the items that we discussed before, we also have a 2% increase for Health Partners Insurance, 5% for 49ers, and 6% for Teamsters. Now, we did receive a 0% increase renewal from Sourcewell for our Health Partners Insurance. But since we're out for RFPs, and we're not sure how the proposal will end, we did stay with a 2% increase for the initial budget.
And we have the 2% increase, but we have heard from Health Partners that if we stay with the Sourcewell Health Partners, it will be 0%.
That is correct. There are no changes to the PERA rates for 2021. We do have a 10% increase in the workers' compensation insurance, and we have adjusted the experience mod rate from 0.78 to 1. The experience mod is based on utilization. And basically, when we receive the 0.78, that's a 22% reduction in the amount of premium that we need to pay. The League of Minnesota Cities was recommending a 5 to 10% increase in the work comp rates because they are concerned about how COVID will impact, as well as post-traumatic stress symptoms claims that are coming up. So we did change that, which I think that we can work with our insurance carrier. I'm thinking we'll probably be around the 0.9% for experience mod, so we could adjust that on our next program. There's no election in 2020, so the actual dollar increase in personnel services then is just under $200,000. We look at supplies. There was an overall slight increase for motor fuel, but the biggest contributor to the increase is for the parks line item, which again was the professional tree removal and the shingling of various buildings that are coming in at less than $5,000. For services, the budget assumes that the city will continue to contract with Crow Wing County for facility maintenance and that the contract amount will decrease by $30,000. However, even with the $30,000 decrease in the contract with Crow Wing County, the professional services overall budget is expected to increase by $37,569. And this is due to contracting for the building official with a delegation agreement. The budget includes plans to continue to lease vehicles and assumes that the leases that are expiring will continue at the same monthly rate. We're not sure what we're going to get back in those vehicles. This is kind of the year where we get to see what happens there. There's nothing in the budget to contract with Sourcewell. We have contracted with Sourcewell the last couple of years to do like riverfront project as well as some planning projects. Nothing in the budget for Sourcewell. We have a 10% increase for our general liability and auto insurance policies that renew in March. Again, that comes from the League of Minnesota Cities. They were estimating an increase between 5 and 10%. There is no payment to Lakes Media Collaborative in the budget. However, the amount that would have been paid is included in the budget to work with CLC to provide options for broadcasting council meetings and for marketing initiatives. Any questions at all? Any comments?
I just want to point out the building official delegation agreement, that money is correlated to the amount of permit revenue that comes in. We're not paying over and above that.
The difference though is that the permit revenue is recognized at the year that it's received. Where we're paying Mr. Sadusky, our independent contractor, we're paying him based on what he's currently doing now. So all that revenue had been budgeted for and received in 2019, and we're paying him in 2020.
Okay, so he's finishing up the school projects. David, go ahead.
Correct, yeah. So part of my budget, I estimated, I worked with Mr. Dusky and the building official, figure out what would be left on those that we know about for the school projects. We estimated it'd be about $75,000, being that two of the, Harrison will go offline by the end of this year. Lowell and Garfield will go off, Lowell, Garfield, and Riverside will all end by December 31st of 2021. At this point, we have paid part of the fees for those. When those projects come in, what was put in the contract is anytime a state delegation project comes in, Mr. Sadusky and the building officials sit down, they create a phase calendar for the project, and then we pay Mr. Sadusky based on the completion of the phases. So Riverside, Lowell, and Garfield have all completed a phase. Lowell and Garfield will have 2 more phases to go in 2021, and Riverside has 1 phase to go in 2021. And because the high school, because that was an ongoing project, what was negotiated, we pay him on an hourly rate for the high school. So with that, what I calculated was the hourly rate based off of what he averages roughly a month, the time there, working with them, understanding what's still left to do at the high school, and then kind of calculating that over the course of and that's where we came up with roughly about 75,000. Again, with the decreases, that's kind of where you get down to the 37,569
Thank you.
Does in the that number, the $37,000 is all departments, not just David's.
Another question is probably for Paul. I'd like to see that we're decreasing the contract price with Crow County for maintenance, because I don't believe they've ever gotten up to 20-80 hours. And I know staff really likes it. Did they spend $90,000 worth of time maintaining our facilities this year?
I believe they did, yes. So they're going to be right at about $1,500 is what that number is based on. So we based it, I can provide a copy of the revised contract agreement with Cook County, if you guys would like, but it's based on $1,500 plus about $30,000 overhead costs. So that's fuel, maintenance of their own vehicles, administrative staff time. So anytime work orders created, the administrative specialist, the facilities manager, and facilities lead, they don't budget or they don't have of the 1,500 hours, they don't spend any of that. That's time that we have in that $30,000 line item. It's basically 15% of their time. So whenever a work order comes in, they look at their workload and then they give a time frame on it, or they delegate what staff should go and respond to that. That's not included as part of it. So it's roughly $60,000 worth of time and about $30,000 worth of 15% of the leadership time and overhead costs like fuel, salt, and all that.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions on the services expenditures? Yeah.
Transfers, the increase in the amount, the increase in the transfers out is the amount that's going to be transferred to the fire capital fund. Part of this increase is realized in the debt levy reduction, and it has to do with the timing factor of when and what we use to bill the fire advisory board members and when we receive the revenue. So it's a timing factor. There is no change to what is being transferred to the mayor's contingency fund or for the IT capital replacement.
Mayor, are you satisfied with $2,500?
The mayor doesn't like spending anything, so
It's got it.
contingency.
For the capital levy, we're proposing to increase by $100,000 to maintain a projected positive cash flow balance in the capital fund. There's nothing in the budget proposing to bond for any new capital this year. And the $100,000 splash pad match request is included in the 2021 capital. So if we look at our proposed budget for 2021, where we currently are, and then compared to what we thought we were going to need for 2021, when we were doing the 2020 budget process. That makes sense? That was a lot to say.
Yeah, it's what you told us last year versus what you told us this year.
Yes. So we have the facilities. That was different. I do believe that was because we were only planning on doing the parking garage, and we thought, let's do the parking lots while we're doing our other parking lots in the town. The scanner, really, if we want to cut that, that's fine. It's $2,000. Just know with BSNA, the scanners are becoming more and more important. The engineering is just a budget change. There's no change for IT. Police, there was a change in their office furniture request. And I do believe we found out with the remodel that we needed new chairs for the squad room and just various things like that. The zoning code update, this is part 2. We budgeted $50,000 in 2020. We're budgeting another $50,000 in 2021. So the defense side are no different. The biggest difference are coming between the park board. And again, we heard that they definitely did some changes this year to how they are operating. And then we also have $25,000 in the budget for street replacement or tree replacement. And so therefore we are planning on spending $1,303,312 in capital items in 2021.
I just have a comment for the council. Perhaps you guys can chew on it or think about it, but in future years, I really like what the parks is doing, so I'm not pointing that out. But in future years, perhaps when somebody didn't know in 2020 that they were going to want something in 2021, you should give it to them in like 2022 or 23. Because it wasn't that much of a priority if you didn't know a year and a half. But consider it, maybe we can talk about it next year again.
Here's a portion of the capital plan. I apologize for being so small. I will try to zoom in. Oops. Do it after I do the presentation, I guess. But we see that we're increasing the levy by $100,000. The blue that's highlighted is the $133,000 that came into the capital plan because we were under budget for 2019. The $88,000, what that is we have a couple of debt service funds that need to be closed out. And so we have been historically transferring the money from those debt service funds into our capital fund. We have the $1,303,000 that we're proposing to spend. And then we see a positive cash flow. Oh, goodness. We see a positive cash flow for our capital plan for over the next 10 years. Any other questions?
I guess I have a question. Yeah, the water tower. So for 2021, you're proposing $400,000 of expenditures, even though we had $200,000 in 2020. Doesn't that add up to $600,000?
So that was our increasing our budget for savings. That's what we were finishing we had set aside $100,000 each year, and 2021 is the last $100,000.
Right, but you have $400,000. And just looking down, doing the math, it's 900,000 plus 100,000 minus 400,000, 600,000.
So I was saying that was the amount that we needed to have in our fund for the water tower. So either way, either I put it in the expenditures or I put it down below.
Yeah, I like it down below, but what I'm saying is we saved 100,000 in 2019, and we saved, then last year in the budget, we saved 200,000. We're up to $700,000 in savings on behalf of water.
I don't think we are there, but I will take a look at that.
Yeah, please do. Any other questions from anybody about long-term capital?
Keep going. So the debt levy we do very similar to operations. We budget what our payments are. We increase it by 105% for non-payment of property taxes, and then we lower the debt levy by the amount that we think we're going to get for special assessments. So the debt levy for 2021 is to pay for the August 1st, 2021 and February 1st, 2022 debt payments. We did take an estimate in there for special assessments. There are 2 debt issues that will be paid off after the February 1st, 2021 payment that the city levied just under $221,000 for in 2020. This year, since we are expecting to receive special assessments, we did lower the levy needed for the debt we just issued by $90,000. And then again, we see the timing from the Fire Advisory Board. That's also about $52,000. We did include a $100,000 estimate for the debt issuance for the 2021 construction project. If we have to issue debt for those, we still need to do some analysis and figure out where we are with our debt, with our capital fund. For the other levies that are required are ones that are included in charter, and these are based on the value of a mill, and the actual mill won't be calculated by the county until November. And these levies are based on the mill rate, which uses the estimated taxable market value. So at about 4:20 today, I received confirmation from the county that what I got showed that our estimated taxable market value was increasing by 11%. What it showed at 4:20 was it was increasing about 9%. So this budget currently assumes that our mill rate would increase by 11%.
Taking money out of baby bills.
So that was primarily the increase. The library, we assumed a 2% increase because this was what the payment to Kichigami showed as an increase. The EDA recommended to do the maximum allowed by state statute. In the airport, we have no change. So now we look at our revenue side. We have the other taxes. This includes the tax increment. It's not TIF. It's kind of complicated to explain, but it's the difference in the tax rate from when the district was formed to where it is now. That is general fund revenue. Lodging, franchise fees, and penalties and interest on delinquent tax payments is basically just changing the estimates based on previous experience. License and permits. We did decrease the building permit revenue by $100,000 for a total budget of $250,000 due to not receiving revenue from the school projects. The council did discuss this in 2020 budget cycle, and that was one of the reasons for the $102,000 additional levy in 2020. We already talked about how building permit revenue is recognized in the years received, not necessarily when we're having the expenses. Revenue and aids. This represents the increase in the amount that's certified LGA for 2021. The city is certified to receive $4,555,146 in LGA. This is $112,000, or approximately 2.5% over the 2020 certified amount. Revenue from other governments. We're estimating the revenue from Baxter and NISWA for the prosecution services to decrease slightly. The contract agreement is based on the percentage of cases, and so that number is kind of always unknown. Then we have the charges for services. We have a slight increase in the amount that we expect to receive from the Fire Advisory Board members, and as well as revenue from the parks programs. Other revenue and transfers in. Basically estimating a decrease in the amount of court and parking fines. Again, that's just based on experience and what we've seen for 2020 as well. So if we look at the recap, yes, we can potentially decrease the levy by about $10,000. Remember, this is preliminary. We have estimates in there, like we assume the school district is going to pay 100% of the school resource contract. Things like that are coming in. So that's the budget. Now let's talk about taxes, the tax rate. We often hear that when a development, we often hear like this development or that project will generate more revenue for the city. And the reality is the revenue the city receives is the amount that the city levies. The only way for the city to get additional revenue is for the city to increase its levy. So you have to make a 10-inch pie versus an 8-inch pie. And the change in the estimated market value of the city only changes the way the pie is divided. So one thing I thought I would share, for example, we have what I received today from the county. We had market value new construction. We had almost $8.2 million in new residential construction for pay year 2020. That equates to $77,000 of tax capacity. So, you know, when you think this multi-million-dollar project is coming, this is going to be great for the city, and it is going to be great for the city, but the impact is not a dollar for dollar. It's significantly different when you're looking at tax capacity. The tax capacity does have a big impact. So what the city levies divided by the total city tax capacity equals the tax rate. The city council has control over what the city levies. And then what we get for revenue is we take all the tax capacity of each of the property times our tax rate, that equals the revenue that the city needs or the city's levy. If the city's levy stays the same and the total tax capacity of the city increases, the tax rate decreases. If the city's levy stays the same and the tax capacity of the city decreases, the tax rate increases. So I've kind of already hinted that we've had a big increase in our estimated market value. So if we assume a 9% increase in the tax capacity, again, this is based on preliminary data and based on my calculations. So this is not the county's tax calculation. This is my nitty-gritty pencil. But if we look at that, our current tax rate for 2020 was 79.332%. What we do with our levy this year, we're going to be able to decrease our tax rate. Again, what the county told me is that they can change the railroad. The difference between the 11 and 9 was basically a change in the railroad property and some personal property assessments. That can change anywhere up until October 1st. So, you know, it can still change, but I thought that was very, very good news. According to the League of Minnesota Cities, part of staff's recommendation is to make recommendations to the City Council. At this time, we've talked it over, and we feel that the preliminary levy, we would still recommend the council set it between 2 and 4% for the preliminary. The reasons being is without the $102,000, we would be looking at a 1.5% increase. And we're looking at whether or not the increase in the levy can cover the increase in personnel services. So that is basically what staff's recommendation is. So we know that if our tax capacities increase that much, we know that our estimated market values are going to increase. And so this is assuming though that just for something has to stay the same when you're looking at analysis. And so this is what it could look like for a residential homestead of $120,000 value. For commercial property, this is what it looks like for them. And so now I'm just looking for direction, council discussion and direction to stand.
Thank you, Connie. Any questions, Jan?
Yes, what, I know last year our commercial was down, residential was up, how we on that?
I don't have the breakdowns the same as I did last year. That's why I wasn't able to put that together. But from this, what it looks like, it's the same thing. Residential is going up, commercial and industrial are going down in estimated markets.
Thank you, Jeff. Wait up. Any other questions, Jeff?
No, and
Any other comments? So this, and I also just wanted to clarify, this includes the additional 400 grand parts. This includes absolutely everything plus the kitchen sink. And we're at this position, so pretty easy to budget this. Tab, what are your thoughts?
All of the rain last year, 4%, the actual revenue 3%. So I guess maybe at this point, we can I'd like to see about 3%.
I would echo what Tad says, with the understanding that whatever we kind of make a decision on tonight, we can always lower it. We can never raise it. So what he said, I agree, but I would say 4, because then we can always.
Skinner says 4, we're fine.
Who said 3?
He said 4.
Oh, he said
four,
agree
fine.
with that.
No, I agreed with what he said. I also don't put words in your mouth.
You agreed with what he said, except for the important.
We can always lower it. We set it at 3 and then lower it, we're gonna be battling again. So I would like to see set it at 4. And we've got months yet.
Wayne?
Excellent. And you guys work hard on it. Thank you.
All you have to do is say you agree with Kevin.
Except for one person.
Well, I would agree. I think 4 would be the highest. I understand what Tad is saying, but I would say with 4 because we can always roll it.
Kelly?
The only increase I want as long as it's here.
Well, let's go 5 then, we'll get more money for the phone.
And I think that assistant coroner should be really solely special. On that. We should have a committee.
Yeah. You support you in there.
Yeah.
Jan, what are your thoughts on levy?
I don't know where it says on that's up this year. I believe that is the decision that you made this year for landmark.
The deadline for Vanill's committee is October 25th, 2020.
We will see the presentation next month. One of next month's.
So, I don't know where we stand on that. So I think what would be a good starting point.
I didn't hear what Kelly said.
He said any increase should go towards the fountain. But then we have to put it in the park.
Until.
We do.
Alderman Pritchett, your comments?
I agree with 75% of everything said because that's about all I could understand. So that being said, I think I'd have to go at 5% if I'm doing them. No.
I'm with you.
I would be comfortable with 3 or 4%. I don't want to see us go lower than that on the preliminary, but I would be okay with either 3 or 4%.
Yeah, well, I'll say I like to see that tax rate going down. We have the highest tax rate in the state of Minnesota and the city of Brainerd of towns between 5 and 15 million valuation. Nobody's higher than 79%. That's it. We tax more than anybody else. So if we can get that down to 75, 72, 70, we are more competitive than equally sized towns across the state. As of right, forget about our neighbors, they're taxed way less. Just equally sized towns, we do need to get that rate down. And we have another opportunity again this year to lower it down without being too aggressive to make us have to jack it back up again next year. So I'm comfortable with a 1 or 2% decrease for the preliminary. I'd be fine with 3%.
That's why we just started 4 and we'll negotiate.
Yeah. Yep.
Dave, on your comparison, a city of equal size, are you also comparing the tax burden, which is residential?
Yeah, I wasn't counting population, I was counting taxable market value. Cities with between 5 million and 15 million taxable market value, we are the kings of taxation here in Brainerd.
Well, I guess I was looking at, residential is comparing the city, basically. So, okay, you answered my question.
Yeah, you're right, residential, that's been the trend the whole time I've been on the council,
Right.
and it's a major problem that our commercial and industrial declining is putting more and more of the burden on
Dave can't hear you.
the residential properties, yeah.
So, I guess I would like to see, obviously, we all like to see that kind of change, and I guess that's one thing we should probably focus on is how can we get it out there that we do have good property for commercial, industrial.
I think that's a different discussion.
No, I know it's a different discussion, but I do.
It's a different discussion. It's a discussion we should have for 30 years. We've been giving Playdeck $80,000 a year watching our economy crumble. It's definitely a conversation that is warranted. Yeah.
You just opened the door to trash on what we gave for them, because I've been saying that for 5 years, not 20. But that's not my point. My point is, I don't think anybody cares about the tax. I'm sorry, Gabe, I just don't think, I think you do. I think everybody cares what their value is on their house, which is set by the county, and how much they have to pay in taxes. So if we can reduce what they have to pay and maintain the level of services, if not increase what we're doing with Parks and Rec, which is phenomenal. I think that's a bargain. I also think part of what we pay or how we tax in the city of Brainerd is based on this kind of a standard. We have some challenges that other communities don't have of our size, especially since a lot of them are suburban metro. So I'm just saying you have to be a little bit, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I think it's nice to reduce the tax rate, but I think most people care more about the valuation, which is going up, and what they pay, which is going up. And what they get. Like Parks and Rec is a great place. Really commend what this year. Rec team is moving. I think people care about it. And I see it. You see that mountain too. They mentioned that.
I can't see it from the stoplight. It's like,
I think the next thing we should do is buy that train back. It used to be at Long Park.
I just show, we talk about the estimated market value, but if our values have gone up that much, we know that existing homeowners are also going to see an increase in their value. So if we say that they receive a 7%, even though we're decreasing our tax rate, they're still going to see an increase in city taxes.
If we can blame the county.
Exactly.
Kelly, people do care more about how much they pay in taxes than what rate they are paying. But I have heard from a number of people who live in Brainerd say, gosh, I was looking at houses in Lake Edward Township and I would pay less taxes in my house. My taxes would be almost cut in a third if I lived on Lake Edward. If I lived on a lake, I would be paying 2 taxes at the same value. Heard it from a number of people. So they don't necessarily equate it to tax rate, but they equate it to the amount of taxes they're paying for the privilege of living in the fine city of Brainerd is substantially higher than the taxes you're going to pay for Baxter or Nisswa or anything else in the same value. And they see that, and they know.
With the entire, and with entire people and services that are provided. I mean, is it apple to apple?
Talk to Dave, you got.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dave, you gotta come to the next meeting, that's his phone.
My question, Dave, was, is it comparing your, example, is that comparing services to services?
I don't know, Tim, do you provide worse services when you're in Baxter than you do when you're in Brainerd?
I don't. Where's Lake Edward? We're talking Lake Edward here.
Right.
How much do you pay for Lake Edward? We don't have. There you go. They don't have gym. Plus, they don't have an $80,000 bill to play that.
No, and then they don't have city sewer and water. You know, it was levy dollars. We've already had this conversation multiple times in recent meetings. We don't spend levy dollars on sewer and water. We spend levy dollars on the general fund that we just went through. We're not talking about electrical sales at BPU or sewage treatment today. We're talking about the dollars we levy for services that are relatively the same between Brainerd and Baxter.
Not for one. We have a crap. Ours is still better. Ours is still better.
So if I'm hearing you correct, you'd like to see the government.
$60,000 from Playdeck a year. At least we can do
Second.
something.
All right, that's second. Any other discussion? So staff, if you heard It looks like we're at 3 to 4 range there. Will be.
Is that a motion thing or not?
Well,
This
it's
is
a
a
workshop.
workshop,
We'll vote on it at our next council.
so that's the, I think the next.
We haven't heard that water bill. Maybe we need
But we-
20.
you better start bumping up your price to tear it down.
Will you include a segment on there in the water fountain?
We've been saving $100,000 a year so we can tear it down next year. We'll know by the end of October if we're tearing. T-shirts at Visit Brainerd, it's still fundraising.
Right, so the preliminary levy can be set at the September 21st council meeting, or we would need to call a special council meeting, but it sounds like we'll be able to do it at the September 21st. We can set another workshop to provide staff with additional information. And the final levy can be lower but not higher than December 31st.
So I think maybe one more short 1-hour workshop shortly before we do the truth in taxation and after we kind of have all of the answers and things that can change in October and November. So maybe like, when's truth in taxation? 1st December?
Well, it has to be done between the middle, like the November 23rd and December 31st. So usually we do it the second Monday of December, that council meeting. So I would think if we could do something like beginning of November or the end of October.
Yeah, let's do like the Monday, I suppose that.
Why don't you just have staff throw out a couple dates?
Yeah, staff, let us know what works best for your goals. Get the budget together. And yeah, but I think just one short, when we have some more answers, because we all know where we're at right now. We're thinking 3-4% things might change, and then, by the time we get to December, I'm sure we'll all be 1%, 0%, -1.
I don't think so.
Better than your 10 last.
So
Where we are though.
a lot of times we get the final or the preliminary tax rate and that kind of stuff from the county right around the first part of November. So that's probably when it will be. All
I
right.
think the second Monday would be something to shoot.
Yeah.
Right
Monday
here
meetings
is
are
the old
fast.
fire hall.
Yeah, the old fire hall.
Yep.
Just a quick update. As soon as you're done.
That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do you want to address this in the workshop or after?
Either way,
Go ahead.
just want to let you know that we have a crew going to Oregon. They're leaving in the morning to assist them with the wildfires. They'll be on a strike team, which is 5 individuals going out there. There's 2 strike teams from Minnesota heading out there. So they'll be leaving in the morning on a 14-day deployment with 2 days of travel.
How many people?
4 of our firefighters.
I'm coming out of retirement.
Where did the engines come from? National Guard?
No, we'll provide an engine.
The one of Brainerd's engines will be out.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just want to let you know that. Appreciate the.
Godspeed.
Thank you, Tim. Good luck to your guys. Well, now we'll take that motion, Kevin.
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's workshop meeting.
Second for Wayne. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Wait, doesn't that have to be a roll call?
You can't hear us anyway. Good job, Bonnie.
Thank you.
I won't be here for the next council meeting either, because I'm quarantined until the 25th.
It's got the formal.
Yeah, if you could have one that has a little bit of a range, those unidirectional mics, that would help.
We'll either get better microphones or we'll switch rooms, go back to the chambers or
We'll
something.
be at the chambers.
Now, if you want to just run like do a test run, I'd be more than happy to go online and just see how it works. I won't be going anywhere.
All right. That was too loud.